Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to Misinformation in Science and Society. Here to listen, not to judge. I'm your host Annie, and today with us we have Don Wuebbles. All right, so could you please introduce yourself a little bit and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Don Wuebbles. I'm a emeritus professor at the University of Illinois. I'm also a senior fellow with the Discovery Partners Institute in Chicago, which is also part of the University of Illinois. I'm trying to help with them with building that in terms of looking at sustainability and resilience to major issues like climate change. And on top of that, I also am co-owner of a company called Earth Knowledge that is very rapidly growing.
Yeah, awesome. So, um, given your extensive experience in the field of atmospheric science, could you please provide some insights into how misinformation can distort our understanding of climate change?
Certainly, I've been with the Earth's climate for many decades. I was a coordinating lead author on the very first, which means I led a chapter of the very first international IPCC assessment, and have in total co-authored six different the international assessments, and then on top of that, I've been a leader in the national climate assessments, and in each case, there was always people trying to uh, attempting to create a negative picture about climate change, mostly because for selfish reasons. It's usually greed. That really, it's not because of science. The science is clear, and this is a science issue, not a political issue. Um, the politics comes into it, and we try to decide what to do, of course. But what has happened is that we're constantly trying to battle against those who try to put out misinformation, uh, to confuse the public, to make sure that um, they don't want to do anything because they want to make money, off of oil and coal, and that's all that matters to them. Um, Really, at least it's pretty clear that's their intention, because in almost all cases, the people doing this have strong connections to those industries. Um, and sometimes it gets personal. I've been personally attacked, and in the Wall Street Journal and and elsewhere. Uh, um, you know, and as a scientist, you go into science thinking, just how you're going to help the world, and you get instead you get attacked by people, not because of anything bad you did, but because of they don't like the message. And so um, it's just something we constantly have to deal with, is the constantly fight against this misinformation, and make sure that people do realize how important this issue is. And the reality is climate change, and also the concerns about nature capital, biodiversity, uh, are some of the most important issues humanity's ever faced, and we need to figure out how to deal with them together, or we're really going to have major impacts on our planet. We're already seeing this year. This is maybe the beginning of um, the period where we're going to start seeing ever increasing concerns about um, how the changes in climate are increasing the intensity of severe weather, including heat waves, and that then is leading to harm of many sorts in terms of our food and water supply, but also human health.
Yeah. So, can you share a specific instance in your career where you had to confront a significant piece of misinformation related to science, it's a climate science, and how you addressed it?
So after we did the fourth national climate assessment, I led the first volume of that U.S. national climate assessment, and that volume was the first ever um, report that really just focused in on the science. Wasn't there was a second volume that then looked at the impacts on the American people and in all the many different ways, all the different parts of the country, different sectors, and et cetera, in terms of the impacts. But the first volume really focused on the science, and we were immediately attacked by I'm not going to name names here, but by some people, one of which ended up writing a book about climate change. That was totally wrong, but got a lot of publicity. And he actually tried to propose that there should be a red team, blue team review of climate science. This was under the Trump administration by this point, and we had to fight back against that. That was, this isn't something you debate in the public manner. It's based on science, and you want to talk about sciences, do that. So he sent me a series of, he called me several times and sent me some emails, and before he wrote the book, and trying to attack various aspects of the report. And we just had to respond to him and just say, look, that's just wrong. You're just totally misinforming people about this. Your facts aren't facts. They're misrepresentations of the science. And he wouldn't back off on that. He's ended up putting those same things into his book. And then we had to respond to him again after that came out. But it was just, it's just typically the kind of things we face. This is someone who had been a physicist, but had also been a vice president at BP Oil in England, and really just wants to distort the science and not trying to look at it carefully. But we were successful, and we were able to eliminate this blue team, red team thing, which would have been, the public would never have understood the details in which we would have to deal with them and talking about it. And they wouldn't understand, why we were right and they were wrong. And so it was just not something we wanted to get into.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And so what role do you believe educators and like students like myself play in like addressing misinformation in climate science?
Well, I think we all play a very big role. And, from your viewpoint as a student, trying to make sure you do understand the science, and trying to make sure that, I've always said, what can anybody be doing about climate change? Well, probably the most important thing we can do right now is communicate. We can all be promoting that we want to have something done because this is such an important issue. But the best way maybe of dealing with that is to promote to our congressmen, our representatives, but even to our parents, to our colleagues, our people we know, that this really is a very important issue. And as you're seeing just in the last few weeks, with all the things going on between the significant wildfires in Canada, and now there's starting up again in California, and the heat waves, getting 130-degree temperatures again in Death Valley, and 120-degree temperatures not too, in populated areas. We're getting outside the range that people can live comfortably at all, and we're so dependent on air conditioning in the summer. But if that energy goes out because of the heat issues, then people are going to be in big trouble, and we need to be able to be better prepared for this. So it's all about making sure that everyone gets educated and is willing to accept that we really have to do something. Now, there's a lot of good things that we can do, and the solutions are at hand, basically, but we have to have the desire to push for them and to basically eliminate the emissions that is coming from our use of fossil fuels, and also try to slow down land use change so that we prevent the emissions coming from our, losing rainforests, et cetera, as well. So we're all in this together, and we just have to figure out how to be effective at that. In my role, it's as an educator, as a scientist, I try to make sure that everyone understands as much as possible. I do a lot of public presentations. I do a lot of TV and radio interviews. That's, I want to spend my time doing research and publishing my studies and what we understand about things. But I feel that I have to spend a significant amount of time on this communication process myself. And then one of my former students, Catherine Heo, has become a really major communicator of that. And Catherine's very, very effective. And some of my other students are as well, but Catherine's is the one that's really very well known for doing a lot of that communication, both through books, and we've written books together, actually, and blogs and radio, TV, etc. So she's very, very effective at it, better than I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what about like, because you said communication, so social media is like a form of communication. So how has like the advent of like social media influenced the spread of information and misinformation about climate change in your view?
Yeah, I think it's both. Unfortunately, Facebook and the other forms of social media too often are willing to just as willing to put out the misinformation as they are the real science and the real facts. And I think it achieves what those people want, which is to leave the people, the public, confused as to whether this is real or not. I get asked all the time, is this really real? Well, of course it is. The science is really clear. I mean, there's not even a question in my mind anymore, or anybody studying the issue, that this is a very important issue. And as has been said by the chief scientist for the UK a few years ago, this may be the most important problem humanity's ever faced.
Yeah. So what strategies would you like recommend to like regular people to like distinguish between fact and the real like science and misinformation when it comes to climate change?
Well, what we need to do, that's difficult because you see something, you don't know how to distinguish, unless you really know the details. So what you have to do is go to people you trust, who are trustworthy. The National Academy of Sciences in the U.S., for example. In most cases, not 100%, but in most cases, major university, and things like the national climate assessments, or we've done special state assessments, and those things, when we do them, they're it's a large number of scientists involved. And it's scientists that are not going to put out misinformation. They're going to try to represent the state of the understanding. Scientists, by and large, are very ethical people. And so when you get something that is done at the national level, and it's chosen leaders throughout the United States to lead one of these national climate assessments, you can count on that being trustworthy. And certainly things like the National Academy of Sciences, as I mentioned, and there's other organizations as well. The American Geophysical Union, the American Meteorological Society, major professional societies are trustworthy. And so search out that information and see what they say before you accept something you see on a blog. or and any kind of social media, uh, because there's a lot of people out there that do want to confuse you, and we need to overcome that.
Yeah. All right. So, those were all my questions about like misinformation. I have two more like just questions for fun, but do you have anything else to add before those?
Um, and I get asked by reporters at the end of their questioning of me all the time, is there anything else you want to add? Well, I think the most important thing people need to realize is this is all science. It's not politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because I constantly hear, "Oh, this is so political an issue." Well, it's a political issue because there are people trying to make it a political issue. But from a scientist's viewpoint, from it, the fact that things are really getting terrible is because of science, and it's not because what's happening in nature is a response of activities we've done, and now we got to figure out the right responses to that. This is very important to our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, and we need to be taking this seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so two more just questions for fun. So the first one is what inspires you like in life? What are some of your like inspirations, whether that's like a person, idea, book, etc. As well as do you have any advice for people, especially like teens?
Yeah, I think go with your heart. I always felt God directed me into what I do. My first two degrees were in electrical engineering, and it was as a graduate student that I discovered the atmosphere and the modeling of the processes that affect the chemistry and physics of the atmosphere that led me into studying the things I've done. I started out studying the stratospheric ozone layer and was a major player, major scientist in the study of how humans were affecting the ozone layer. And I developed one of the major air quality models. And then I got involved with climate change, and I've been doing a lot of that work since, both in terms of modeling and leading assessments and all kinds of things, assessments of the science. So I always felt God was pushing me all the way to make that happen. Uh, and the best advice I can provide is, go with what really challenges you. What really drives you inside as a person, that will make you be the best you can be in whatever field you want to be. Not everybody's going to be a scientist like me. We need people in lots of other areas as well.
Mhm.
It takes a village to make this a successful um, life for all of us. So, so go with your heart and follow it. And if it leads you into science, I'm happy to help any way I can.
All right. Thank you for this and thank you for this interview for your time. It was really nice speaking to you and learning from you. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, all the best, Annie, and
Thank you.
do well in your education, and I'm sure you're going to have a very promising future, just
Thank
based
you.
on what you're trying to do here. I I, I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, bye bye.